Right.
All right. Hey, kids.
Hey,
What time is it?
time for Gezintahait Street.
It is time for
So far. Dabo dabo velo yakum. Mutsu eksobe super dabo dabo velo yakum. Kima onu. Mutsu eksobe super dabo dabo velo yakum. Kima onu. Mutsu eksobe so far. Dabo dabo velo yakum. Mutsu eksobe super dabo dabo velo yakum. Kima onu. Mutsu eksobe super dabo dabo velo yakum. Kima onu.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Gezintahait Street. The story for tonight is called A Lesson from a Young Trooper. Can you hear me okay? The volume's all right? All right. A lesson from a young trooper. The previous Rebbe once told a story that occurred when the Tzemach Tzedek attended a rabbinical conference in Petersburg, the capital of Tsarist Russia. At that time, an army unit of a few hundred Cantonists was camped in Kronstadt, which was a kind of a suburb of Petersburg. Cantonists, in case people don't know, were 6- and 7-year-old Jewish boys who were drafted into the Russian army for 25 years. It was an evil plan by the Tsar to try to make them forget their religion. He was called the Tsar Nikolai I. When the young Jewish soldiers in Kronstadt heard that the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, was nearby, they asked him to come and speak to them. Miraculously, permission was given from the government for the Rebbe to go and visit the boys. When he got there, the young soldier said to him, Rebbe, we polished our buttons in honor of your visit. Now we want you to polish and refine our souls, which have become coarsened through being in the Geisha army. The Tzemach Tzedek answered them by delivering a Hasidic discourse in a simple way they could understand. And after saying the discourse, he instructed the boys that even though they had no Jewish books, those who remembered some Psalms of David should teach the others so that they would know them by heart. And their heartfelt prayers of Psalms would be similar to the way a soldier polishes his buttons. The Rebbe explained that just as soldiers polish their buttons with earth and water, so too polishing the soul is done with earth and water. Earth represents the words of the prayers, and water represents the tears which accompany those ancient prayers. One young soldier piped up, Rebbe, when a soldier goes to war, he goes happily with a victory march, not with tears. The Tzemach Tzedek agreed. He said, happiness in serving Hashem is the way to defeat the evil impulse. From that time on, all Chabad Rebbes emphasized that our service should be infused with happiness. And in that way, our fight over the evil will take place with extra strength, and our victory will occur in a faster and an easier way. That's a story. I have a second story, but maybe we should have a niggun first. Maybe I'm just going to sing one of my joke songs to open things up. If the mikvah was mashka and I was a duck,
And I was
went to the bottom and I never come up. Tell me how long do I have to wait? Can I get Mashiach now? Or must I hesitate? The mikvah's not mashka.
Oh, the mikvah's not mashka.
And I'm not a duck.
No,
When I
I'm
swam to the bottom, I was swimming up. Tell me how long
How long?
do I have to wait? Can I get Mashiach now? Or must I hesitate? Merciful King, all the work is done.
Oh,
Don't you think it's time we could have some fun? Tell me how long
How long?
do I have to wait? Can I get Mashiach now? Or must I hesitate? Now come on, children. We're gonna have some fun. You ain't
We're gonna have
nothing like the Holy One. Tell me how long
How
do I
long?
have to wait? Can I get Mashiach now? Or must I hesitate? You guys have a nigga you want to do? Oh, Tati, King.
Hey, tzama, 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 tzama lecha nafshi. Kama, 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 kama lecha besari. Hey, tzama, 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 tzama lecha nafshi. Kama, 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 kama lecha besari. Hey, hey, Dordine Marcos, Tate, Dishnayar Marco. Toblaish, Nebradaish, Togaram, Bardo, Dordine Marcos, Tate, Dishnayar Marco. Toblaish, Nebradaish, Togaram, Bardo. Hey, Tama, 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 Khanashi. Kama, 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 Khanashi. Hey, Tama, 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 Khanashi. Kama, 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 Khanashi. Oh yeah, don't be my ghost, they Dishnayar Marco. Toblaish, Nebradaish, Togaram, Bardo. Hey, don't be my ghost, they Dishnayar Marco. Toblaish, Nebradaish, Togaram, Bardo. Hey, tzama, 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 chanashi. Kama, 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 chapesari. Hey, tzama, 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 chanashi. Kama, 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 chapesari. Hey, hey, dordine Marcos, tate, dishnayar Marcos. Toblaish, nebradaish, togaram, zevarcho. Hey, dordine Marcos, tate, dishnayar Marcos. Toblaish, nebradaish. I come out with hope,
Hey, yeah. Thanks for that. That was a nice groovy nigga. Last week, we spoke about Rabbi Shimon and his connection with Lag BaOmer. It was the day he passed away. And he asked it should be a day of celebration. Tonight, we're going to try to explain a little bit the beauty of Shabbos. And we'll explain it according to Rabbi Shimon's explanation. And we're not going to get to all the levels of the whole Shabbos, but we'll start with what happens on Friday night. Like everybody knows, Shabbos is a beautiful day of rest. But we're going to examine it and see what the details are of why and how it happens. Friday night is the time of the ascent of the souls to the higher paradise. Like it says in Sefer HaBayer, there's a pillar connecting the lower paradise to the higher paradise. Paradise is Gan Eden, through which the souls ascend on Shabbos. the souls go up from the lower paradise to the higher paradise on Shabbos. Tonight we'll examine the how and the why of that ascent through the Hasidus explanation of a Zohar, which is about the 3 meals of Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon, the one who expounded the teachings of the Zohar, declares that on Shabbos there is a delight which is higher than Hashem's ineffable name Havaya. And to understand the why and the how of that statement, and through that understanding to develop a deeper appreciation for Shabbos, we first need to understand something of the name Havaya, and also the how and what of this supernal delight, the godly delight that is manifest on the Shabbos day. In order to understand the divine delight in general, and in particular, how it relates to Shabbos, we'll employ the metaphor of human pleasure and delight. Like it says, from my flesh, from my body, I'll see God. When an artist approaches making a beautiful vessel, a painting, a vessel, whatever he's making, he has a realization that that object, when he's finished, will bring him pleasure. And ultimately, the pleasure he'll receive is from a vision that he sees of that work before he starts working. He hasn't yet measured out all the details that are necessary to make that vessel that he wants to create. And in order to actually make that vessel, he'll have to construct it in all of its parts and details. And in order to know which fine details are necessary and how to accomplish incorporating them in the work, he'll have to apply his powers of wisdom and understanding of craftsmanship and design. And even his emotional powers. After all, he wants to communicate an emotional message to the one who sees the work. Whether he wants to communicate an awe of his ability to create this beautiful thing, or love for the object, or appreciating its beauty, or a combination of all of them. And at the same time, he's applying those powers. He's so involved in the work that his original delight is completely hidden. He's all involved in doing the work. So the delight he has in the finished product is hidden. When the work is complete, his soul powers of intellect and emotions return back to him. And that's called resting from the work. Now he can appreciate and enjoy his creation, as long as it was done perfectly according to the way he first envisioned it. So too, this is a metaphor for how Hashem creates the world. When he creates the 50,000 times 50 year levels of the chain of descent of the world, after it's all done, after the 6 days are over, after the work is over, it says Shabbos v'yanapash. The soul returns. Hashem's powers, his attributes return back to him. He rests from the work and he appreciates his creation. That's what it said. He saw it was very good. Like the artist who sees this thing that he makes after he makes it, and he sees the pleasure that he saw in the first place that he's going to get from it. And the tool, so to speak, through which he accomplished the creation, the intellectual wisdom and knowledge and emotion, what is that tool? It's the name of Vaya. It's the famous ineffable name that we don't pronounce. And it's made up of 4 letters. I'm sharing a picture of it on the screen. The first letter is the Yud. Everybody see the Yud? All the way, the first little small letter. And that symbolizes the godly attribute of wisdom called Chachma. And even though it has some kind of a form, you see it's wide and it's long, according to itself, it's not wide and long compared to the next letter, but in itself it has some kind of form. It's very compact. And that indicates contraction, tzimtzum, like a dot, which is a non-expansive, it's a simple mark on the paper. So the distinguishing property of Chachma, this Yud, the first letter of that ineffable name, and that name can be broken into 2 Hebrew words. Koach ma, meaning it's still only a potential. And it's a potential for what? For a tangible explanation, which will be actualized by the godly attribute of understanding, which is symbolized by the next letter, by the Hey. And explaining called Bina. The Hey is an expansive, you see how it's much longer and wider than the Yud? That symbolizes that it's an expansive thing that's an actual explanation. It exhibits length and breadth. A long and wide explanation of the original idea, which is manifest through the Chachma, through the Yud. Therefore, Bina is designated as a wide river. And that explanation and understanding, this level of Bina, gives birth. In Kabbalah terms, Bina is called the mother. This mother, the Hey, gives birth to the next letter, the Vav. The Vav is a long straight line, and it indicates a drawing down from the explanation of Bina, and it symbolizes the emotional attributes in the world of Atzilus. And the Vav is the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and that communicates the inclusion of all 6 emotion attributes. Now we're up to the emotion attributes. I think it's a good time to count the Omer. Gimel Aleph, you want to count the Omer with everybody? Last night was 39. We'll do it without the bracha, because I'm sure you did it already. Does he want to do it?
Yeah, unshare your screen. We have.
I want everybody to repeat after.
Wait, 1 second. Wait, we have not me. We have Gidon, one of the Gezintahait Street Meshuggah band people.
Regulars.
Wait, if Gidon holds the body, does he become the neshama?
Gidon's going to do it with a bracha?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Gidon's going to say the blessing. Everybody, after the blessing, will repeat after Gidon what the
Wait,
day is.
Salil, unshare the screen.
Like white out tomorrow.
You mean undo the Yud Kei Vav Kei there?
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
There we go, because now we showed them Yud Kei Vav Kei. Now Gidon's going to do the Yud Kei Vav Kei.
Do it, Gidon.
You need help?
I just want to make sure I'm saying it from the script.
He wants to do a text-based
All
here.
right.
Just say it loud.
It's a special tune I should be using.
Yeah, any tune you want.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת העומר
Amen.
היום יום 40 יום
Yeah.
שהם 5 שבועות ו5 ימים לעומר.
Shkaya!
Yeah. I'm going to say it just in case anybody wasn't.
English. You can say it in English
I
too.
want everybody to say it after me exactly like I'm saying.
And say in English also.
Today is the 40th day
The 40th day
Omer.
of the Omer.
It is
It is
5 weeks
5 weeks.
and
And
how many days?
5, right?
how many days?
Uh,
5?
And 5 days of
5 days.
Omer. And it manifests
And it manifests
a
Yeah.
specific emotion attribute, which is Hod of Yesod. And
That's big stuff, B'Tzalel.
can I share back now?
Yeah.
Or as I say in French, I want to
It doesn't want to share. Does any? You cannot minimize Zoom when you're recording this meeting. Okay, but how do I get the thing back? Let's try it. Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, so the emotion attributes are symbolized by this Vav. And they're born out from this Hey, which is Bina the mother. And those emotions in turn are communicated to and through the final Hey of the name, which includes divine thought and speech. The Hey, this final Hey, indicates the attribute of godly royal sovereignty. Hashem is the king and the boss, which culminates with the royal decree. Hashem makes a decree and the world is created. It's created and it's enlivened. It's a separate world through divine speech. And through that, Hashem is able to be a king of a people. That's the decree of the king. Like when Hashem says, let there be light, there's an actual creation of a thing called light. And this Hey is called the level of Malchus of Atzilus. But you see, we're back to the Yud. You see, the Yud has a little thorn on top. That thorn of the Yud indicates the crown, which is higher than the whole thing. It's the level from which this Yud is found and comes out. Like it says, Chacham is found from nothing. Like this little thorn is connected to something higher, which is we have no grasp on it. And when the light of that crown, when the light comes through this thorn and shines into this Yud of Chachma, then Chachma is called Eden, as in Gan Eden, like in paradise. Why? Because when the light of Kesser, the light of godly pleasure, shines through this thorn into the Chachma, Chachma manifests godly delight. So it's called Eden. And the power of godly light is much higher than Chachma, much higher than intellect, symbolized by that thorn on top of the Yud. When an idea is generated, like when a wisdom, when a Chachma is generated, like this Yud, in a person, it delights him very much. He's very happy to have generated this idea. and he's animated by that delight. But one who hears his idea, even though he might enjoy it, his enjoyment and excitement cannot be compared to the delight and the enjoyment of the one who generated the idea. Because Chachma contains the light, contains delight, which is tainug. And it's actually generated because there is a pleasure in generating this idea. But wait a second. What connection does wisdom have to pleasure? If wisdom was actually one with pleasure, then the person who hears it from his friend, he hears the idea, he would be just as animated because the pleasure would be bonded to this thing that he's hearing as the one who came up with it. But it's not a fact. The fact is the one who came up with it is much more animated and delighted with the wisdom than the one who hears the idea. So you have to say then that pleasure is not bonded as one with the idea. It's just dressed in it as it's revealed to the one who conceives it. And the one who heard the idea is affected by the idea, but it's not comparable to the one who generated the idea. The idea, the chachma, the wisdom, is generated from its source, which is the pleasure in generating this wisdom. And it's called, that source is called a nothing, because it's much higher than any revealed level. Therefore, it can't be grasped. So it's called the nothing. But we know it exists. Why? Because the chachma has pleasure in it. It makes you happy and animated. And in the supernal godly man, which is really what we're talking about, with this metaphor of talking about our own psychology, it's called the level of the godly crown. And it's called the nothing of the crown. And in the supernal crown of the supernal man, which is known as the holy ancient one, Atik Yomin. Ancient indicates removed, like earlier generations are removed from us. They're the old generation. So the one who generates the idea, because it comes from the source, which is higher and removed from intellect, which is generated because of the pleasure in generating ideas. Therefore, he's animated from the pleasure which is generated and contained in this idea. And where that idea comes from, the pleasure, is called the thorn on the yud, the crown. It indicates the crown from which Chachma is found, from which this idea comes. Like it says, Chachma is found from nothing. And when that connection is revealed, when is it revealed? At the time of the resting from the work. When Hashem has finished his work, the 6 days are over, and now he's resting from the work. Now it's revealed the pleasure that Hashem gets in this thing that he made. And at that point, the Yud is called Aden. It's not just called Chachma, it's called Aden. Like in Gan Eden, like in paradise. Because of the godly delight, it contains and draws down. Like the example of the enjoyment of the one who generates the idea. Only it's a godly enjoyment in this level of wisdom, which is revealed now on Friday night. The object of the metaphor is that Chachma of Atzilus has two levels. One, the Chachma of Atzilus during the week, which does not contain full strength delight, only a mere glimmer, like the guy who's working on his project. His delight in the project is not revealed. That's symbolized by the Yud of the name Avaya during the week, when there's no infusion of light, of pleasure from the crown. The thorn on the top of the Yud is similar. The infusion from the crown is the thorn. But the Yud by itself during the week is similar to the one who hears the idea. He's not animated like the one who generates it. That's the Chochmah, that's the Yud during the week, during the 6 days. Symbolizing the level of wisdom which is used in the 6 days to create the world. Just like our artist friend, when he's working on his thing, his pleasure in what he's working on is not revealed. It's only revealed after it's finished, and then he is able to contemplate it. The second level of Chachma, which is called Eden, because supernal delight, called Tainug Elyon, called the Ancient of Days, shines into the Chachma through the thorn. So it's called Eden. It's called delight. It's not called just wisdom to create the world. It's godly delight comes down into this revelation. Like the one who generated the idea originally. It shines in and is animated by the great delight it contains, and through which he gets great delight in it, the guy who generated this wisdom, this idea. And it's called not the body of the Yud, but the thorn on top of the crown, which is called godly delight. And through the thorn, it shines into the level of wisdom of the Yud. And that's manifest on Shabbos at the evening meal. Okay, and on Shabbos, there's 3 meals. There's the Friday night meal, which now we're discussing the dynamics of how it works on the spiritual level. Then there's the afternoon meal, the morning meal, and then the afternoon meal, which we're not up to yet. The supernal godly pleasure, the pleasure of the Ancient of Days, shines through that thorn, through the crown, into the Yud, which is wisdom, which is the start of all the worlds. And this shining of godly pleasure into the world causes the souls to ascend, because there's such a revelation of godly pleasure that the souls move up to have pleasure from that godliness. That's what happens at the meal on Friday night. They get much more, there's much more levels of godly delight than which they experience during the weekdays. Like we said, the Sefer Abar says, there's a pillar in the lower paradise through which the souls ascend to the upper paradise on Shabbos. And their ascent is due to the fact that the godly pleasure is much more revealed on Shabbos. Like it says, he rested on the 7th day. His powers came back to him like our artist. When he rests and contemplates what he does, now he gets pleasure of what he accomplished. Like resting from work, when the soul powers that had invested in concentrating on the work of Hashem on the 6 days now return to the soul, and the person gets pleasure from what he accomplished. Hashem gets pleasure from what he accomplished on the 6 days. That pleasure becomes revealed, and it is such a big revelation that the souls become included in it, because Maros of Batilis is the general soul, called the Shabbos Queen. And when she is elevated to the higher Gan Eden, so are all the souls in all the worlds. Therefore, at that point, Chachma, godly wisdom, is called Eden on Shabbos, because Shabbos is the level of the supernal intellect, which is called Father in Kabbalah terms, Mochen Da'aba. And on Friday night, the supernal delight of the Holy Ancient One is drawn down through the thorn into Chachma. And at that time, the level of Bina, which is the Hay that comes after the Yud, is called Gan Eden. The Yud is called Eden, and the Hay is called Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. That's the garden where Eden, in which is infused through the thorn the godly pleasure, shines into that garden, into Bina. And the revelation of Eden is in the garden, because like we said, Chochmah is an essential point, which is revealed long and wide through Bina. That's the garden through which Eden is revealed. They're called the two friends who are never separate. Therefore, the revelation of the supernal delight is revealed in Bina, in the garden, not in Chochmah, which is this compacted dot, even though it's shining into the Chochmah. Bina is the garden where Eden, the Chochmah, the godly delight, which is infused into that little Yud through the thorn on top of the Yud, becomes revealed in a long, wide way in the garden. And there, that garden is where the souls ascend to. And they ascend together with the general soul of all creation, which is called Malchus, which is the Shabbos queen, goes up to its place of pleasure on Friday night. So the Friday meal on Friday night is called the meal of the Holy Apple Orchard. That's going to be the apple orchard, which is located in the garden. And that orchard is the orchard whose fruits include all the particular delights of the whole creation. On that night, the queen is blessed, which is Malchus of Atzilus, which in its ascent includes all the worlds and souls. That's the pillar that they go up through, that were created from its decree. Remember, let there be light. Let's have a nigger. You guys ready to sing a nigger? Yeah, we are.
Okay, ready? Ready? I know, Avida Likut Shabricho. 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 This I get in the come I say, I know, hey, I'm the good Shabaricho. This I get in the come, I say, I know, I'm the good Shabaricho. This I get in the come, I say, I know, I'm the good Shabaricho. This I get in the come, I say, come, Bechali the Medan, come, I say, Bechali the Medan, come, I say, Bechali the Medan. I say, Bechali don't.
This ascent of Malchus begins right away when the 6 days are finished on Friday night. Like it says, Hashem so is very good, like our artist when he sees the work and he gets pleasure and nachas from what he accomplished. When the 6 days are done, Malchus ascends to be included in his source in the world of Atzilus, and even higher up to the crown of the world of Atzilus, that godly pleasure called Atik Yomen, the Ancient of Days. And that connects the godly world of Atzilus to the emanator himself, which is like by our artist, the particular pleasure in that particular work of art that he did. And now that pleasure came to fruition and completion. His pleasure in it is a pleasure in his soul itself. It's higher than the pleasure in what he created. He feels it in the soul itself, higher and separate from what he created. The soul is filled with light from this pleasure. So too by Hashem, the particular pleasure of the work of creation that he gets after he creates it is incomparable to the essential pleasure in Hashem's essence. His power to enjoy and generate all the lights. So this level of the Ancient of Days, the godly pleasure, where Malchus ascends, is the source of all pleasure in all four emanated created worlds. It's called the Holy Apple Orchard. But compared to the essential pleasure, which is the essential power to enjoy, it's still only a mere glimmer, even though it's the source of every pleasure in four worlds, in all the 50 times 50,000 levels. On Shabbos night, that essential source of all pleasure is not yet shining. Only a shine from it is revealed, which is enough. That shine is enough to be the source of every pleasure in every level of anything that can be grasped or imagined. It's called the Holy Apple Orchard. Those fruits are pleasurable, and they contain the pleasure of everything that can be imagined or is included in emanations and creations, called the Holy Apple Orchard. But that's still not the essence of the godly pleasure. It's only that godly pleasure for the four worlds. Therefore, it's called the meal of the Holy Apple Orchard, whose fruits are the source for every heavenly and earthly pleasure, all the way up to the highest paradise, all the way down to this physical pleasure in our physical world, like on Shabbos. We have a mitzvah of getting pleasure from the physical food that we eat, all the way down to this lowest world of ours. Because through many descents and contractions, our physical pleasures are generated by the original godly pleasure from cause to effect. And it starts with the enjoyment of the souls in the upper paradise on Friday night, where they get pleasure from a ray of godliness. There's a revelation of a ray of the infinite light up there in the higher Gan Eden on Shabbos, and that is the start of the contractions and descent down to our pleasure on Shabbos, like the famous story of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who's called Rebbe, and Antonius, who, if he wasn't the king of Rome, was certainly a big rich guy. And he shared the Shabbos meal with Rebbe. And afterwards he asked for the recipe. He loved it so much. And he gave him the recipe, and all of the fancy chefs that he could hire, nobody could come up with that taste. And he went back to him and he said, "What's going on? You gave me the recipe. It was so good, and we can't achieve it." He said, "Because there's a special ingredient. That special ingredient is Shabbos. This level of godly pleasure is in everything that we do on the Shabbos. If we only keep it and have an intention of enjoying it. And that ray shines to the level of Machas on Shabbos, and that causes the ascent of the souls to the higher paradise on Friday night, to the source, that holy apple orchard, of all the pleasure in the four worlds. When Malchus gets its aliyah, gets its ascent up to the level of the godly crown. That's why we say on Kiddush on Friday night, this is the meal of the holy apple orchard. So there's three levels of godly pleasure that we described. There's the shine of pleasure, which is hidden in the yud of Chachma, like during the week, in which the light of Kesser, of the godly pleasure, is dressed in a very hidden way, like the artist who's working on his creation. His pleasure is not revealed. Like the guy who hears the idea. He's not so turned on like the guy who generated it. Then there's a second level, the great shining revelation of the crown into Chachma, into the Yud of Chachma, through the thorn on top of Chachma, which was revealed on Shabbos. That's why Shabbos is called the delight, like the guy who generates the idea. And that delight comes through the thorn on the top of the Yud of Chachma is now called Eden. And then the third level, the essence of the supernal pleasure, the godly delight, higher than the revealed shine of the crown into Chachma and Shabbos. And that is the thing on which Rabbi Shimon said on Shabbos, there is a delight higher than the name of Ayah. We want Mashiach now. You have
we have one for you, B'Tzalel.
what do you call it? One of those appeals.
B'Tzalel, first of all, before we do a niggin, I have an appeal.
An appeal by Gimel Aleph. We got to hear.
I want to tell you, Chevre, that in this week's Parsha in Behar-Bechukosai, it says, in Behar-Bechukosai Telechu, if you will go in my chukim. And the Alter Rebbe asked three questions. Why it uses Telechu, if you will go. This is an unusual thing to use this phrase. It is Shemairu, you will guard, but Tasu, you will do, but why you will go? Also, Behar-Bechukosai, why Behar-Bechukosai? Why not B'mitzvesai, in my mitzvahs? Why in my chukim? And also, why if you will go? So first of all, the Alter Rebbe explains that is Loshin Bakosha V'Tchina. Not like the food Tchina, okay? We're talking about like begging. It means that the Eibishter is begging, Halavai, the Yidden will go in my chukim. He goes to explain also what does it mean we will go, why go? Because like it says that V'nosati lochem mahalchim bein ha'imdim, I will put for you people going between those who are standing. And we know that the ones who are standing are the angels, and the ones who are going are the Jews, the Jewish people. Why is this? This is because the malach, when an angel is put there, for example, a malach has a certain job, to loving Hashem, or fear of Hashem, or Achmanis, Moisi. He has a certain job, and a malach never moves from this job. He's always in this job, and not only that, he's always in the same level. In other words, if the malach is a malach of the world of Bria, he stays in the world of Bria. If he's in the world of Asiya, he stays there. Okay, so this is what a Jew has to be a mahalich. He has to go, always going higher and higher. So this is what Hashem is saying, is he wants us to go to be mahalchim, to be ones who are always getting higher and higher. And how do you do this? Behar-Bechukosai, through my chukim. But this also comes from the same language as engraving. That what's the difference between an engraving, like we know the luchos, the tablets were engraved, and our Torah that's on parchment is written with ink. That the ink is written with a separate thing, the ink on the parchment. But an engraving in the luchos is part of the same luchos. It's not a separate thing. And this is the same thing. Is there's two types of a chokhmah that you could have, two types of thought. One of them is when you're thinking to speak, and this is connected to the speech. As we know, that speech, once it leaves the mouth, it stays the way it is. It doesn't change after that. Those words have been put out there, like they say. You know, like when somebody says something and your Bubby say, no, he didn't. You know, like it's because it's already out of the mouth. You can't, it stays like this. And this is like the angel. But the Jew comes from like the thought of Hashem that is connected to the Koyach HaMaskil, that is connected from where it's in the source of all thought. In other words, that we connected to Hashem. We connected to Hashem in his essence. How do we do this? The Rebbe says this is through davening. This is when we daven the way we're supposed to. We daven to Hashem, we connect all the way up to Hashem. But he says that after this is very important. Hashem is begging us, Halavai the Yidden should daven to me, so that they can be mahalchim, they can bring down my light into the world. But the Rebbe says something else also. It's not enough you have the light, you have to have a vessel to hold the light. And this light is the mitzvahs. That the mitzvah is the vessel that holds Hashem's light onto this world. So I want to ask all of my brothers and sisters, also the Jew and also not the Jew, that they should, if you're Jewish, take on yourself one of the 613 mitzvahs, and take on yourself to daven, even a little piece, even just Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. If you're a man, put on tefillin, say Shema. It takes only a few minutes, but in this few minutes, you're connecting to Hashem. You're bringing His godly light down into this earth. You can go to Chabad.org, CHABAD.org, and find a shliach next to you. Find a Chabad rabbi. He will help you get film if you need. He'll put on film with you. He'll show you how to do it. Just a few minutes of davening every day, and take one mitzvah every day. And if you're not Jewish, there's the 7 Noahide laws. You can go to asknoah.org and find out more about this. Take on a mitzvah so we can bring Mashiach right now.
Oh, man.
Okay, we have a niggun.
Okay, do it.
Oh, Aderes ve'yamona lecha yelamim, Habina ve'yamerocha lecha yelamim, Hagai ve'yagedola lecha yelamim, Ha'adeya ve'yadibar lecha yelamim, Hey, ayayam, 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 ha-hey-ya adalecha yelamim, ha-va-de-ya zikos lecha yelamim, ha-ze-ve-ya-ze-ya lecha yelamim, ha-va-cha-yel-ve-ya chesen lecha yelamim, ayayam, 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 hey, ayayam, ayayam, hey, ayayam, ha-teches ve-ya-tleyar lecha yelamim, ha-yichod ve-ya-yira lecha yelamim, ha-keser ve-ya-tov lecha yelamim, ha-va-lekach ve-ya-libor lecha yelamim, ayayam, ayayam, hey, ayayam, 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 ayayam,
Hamelucha v'yamshala l'chayei lamim. Hanei v'yanetzach l'chayei lamim. Hasegoy v'yaseger l'chayei lamim. Always v'yohano v'lechayei lamim. Ayayam, ayayam, hey, ayayam, 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 hey, ayayam. Hapedos ve'yavei lechayei lamim. Hatzvi ve'yatzedek lechayei lamim. Hakereya ve'yakedosh lechayei lamim. Oh, ein ve'yorein lechayei lamim. Ayayam, 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 ayayam. Hashiyeh ve'yasheva lechayei lamim. Hatehila ve'yatiferes lechayei lamim. Ayayam, ayayam. Hey, ayayam, 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 hey, ayayam, ayayam, hey,
Yay! I'm going to do the sign-off nigga now. Gezintahait, Gezintahait, my friends. Remember, kids, Gezintahait.